Welcome. In this tutorial, we are going to take a look at the DateTime class, whose objects are immutable and hashable. So let's begin with date. This is the date constructor, which takes three arguments: year, month, and day. Year can be in between minimum year and maximum year, which is an attribute of date class. Month can be between 1 to 12 and day can be between 1 to the number of days in a given month. Okay, so let's construct our first date object. So to import date class, we need to import it from DateTime module. So from DateTime module, import date class. Okay, in this we will provide three arguments: year, month, and date, day of the month. If you print it, it will print like this. Next is a today method. Today method returns the today's date in a date object. Okay, so if we execute date.today, it will return date object containing the date of today. As we can see, it has written today's date. Let's look at the attributes of date class. So day, month, and year is a argument that we have provided in the constructor of the date class. Minimum and maximum are the values of a minimum date and maximum date that is acceptable by the date constructor. And resolution is a minimum possible difference between two dates, okay, which is 1 day. Two date object which are closest can be differ by only 1 day. So let's execute it and see. So we have taken today's date. If we access today's date by day, it will return 25, month will return 3, and year will return 2020. On date class, if we execute min and max, which can also be executed on object also. Okay, so on today also we can execute min and max, which will return date object which is minimum and date object which can be maximum, represented using date class, and resolution is 1 day. Now let's look at the function of date class. First is weekday. Return the day of the week as an integer, 0 for Monday and 6 for Sunday. So if we take a date of 22nd March 2020, it will return 6 because it is a Sunday on that day. Next method is isoweekday, which will return 7 for Sunday and 1 for Monday. So if we execute for the same date, it will return 7. Next method is isocalendar. Return the tuple object representing iso year, iso week number, and iso weekday. So if we execute isocalendar on the date object, it will return year, iso year. This is the 12th week and day of the week, which is 7. Next method is from isocalendar. It will return date object from the three argument: iso year, iso week number, and iso weekday. So first we will extract those parameter from isocalendar and will pass it in the parameter of from isocalendar, which will construct the date object. As you can see, it has constructed the date object based on iso values. Next method is ctime. It represents date in as a native C. Native C library has a ctime method, and this ctime method behaves exactly same. As we can see, time part of a string is 0 because this is a date object. Okay. Next method is toordinal, returns the proleptic Gregorian ordinal of a date. So first ordinal is when January of year 1. From that count the day. So today's ordinal, the day of ordinal of us 22nd March 2020 is this integer. Okay. And from ordinal we'll construct the date object from the given ordinal value. So if we take same ordinal value and pass it to the from ordinal method, it will return the date object. So today is 25th. If you pass its ordinal, it will construct the date object from it. From timestamp, which will return date object from timestamp. Okay. So to take a timestamp or epoch time, we need to import time module, and time module has a time method which returns epoch time of a current. So it will return current time in second. Okay, which we will pass it to the from timestamp method, which will return date object. Okay, let's execute. As you can see, it will construct today's date because we are providing the current timestamp. Next method is isoformat, which returns the date in isoformat. So this is the how date is represented in isoformat. From isoformat, it returns the date object from the string date represented in isoformat. So if you have a string which is containing date in isoformat, we can construct the object date object from the given string. Okay, so from isoformat is the method is used. So if you print the object, it will print the given date. Okay, and the type of class is type of object of a return object is DateTime.date. Next method is replace, which will return a new date object from an existing date object by replacing the given argument. So replace takes same argument as a date constructor on an existing object such as d1. It will only replace the given argument parameter and return a new object. So if you want to just change the year of the date, we can pass it in the parameter. It will return a new object, which is by replacing this object. So if we print d1, it will remain same because it is an immutable object. So any operation on that object will not affect it, but it will return a new object which is containing a newer value of a given year. Okay. Next method is timetuple, which returns the local time tuple compatible with time.localTime. Okay, so let's execute it. Okay, this is a time.structime, which is a name tuple, and this is used to exchange date and date and time between different types of system. Okay, as we saw earlier, float cannot be represented exactly in the binary. So in order to preserve the precision, or in order to convert the given date time into binary, this time tuple method is used. Okay, next is a time class. So this is the constructor of a time, which takes hour, minute, second, microsecond. Okay, and this is tz info, time zone information, and this is the fold for repeated time interval. So these are the range for the argument. Hour is 0 to 24, minutes is between 0 to 60, second is 0 to 60, microsecond can be between 0 to this. Fold can have value 0 or 1. So tz info by default it is none, but if it is given, it can be subclass of a tzinfo class. Tzinfo is itself an abstract class. Okay, so its concrete implementation in Python is timezone class. So we can provide an object of a timezone class or any other custom implementation of that subclass of a tzinfo class. Okay, and next argument is fold. So it is used when repeated time interval occurs, such as the clocks are rolled back at the end of the daylight saving time. Okay, and when the current time zone is decreased for the political reason, it also goes backward. Okay, so in such cases 0 represents the earlier time and 1 represents the later time. Okay, next topic is attribute of time class. So these all are the given parameter of a time class, same as given in the constructor. It will return the respective value passed in the constructor. Minimum and maximum is the minimum value and the maximum value can be represented using time object, and resolution is the smallest difference between two non-equal time object. So let's check the attribute. So these are the two time object. As you can see here, it can also be constructed with the keyword arguments or the without keyword argument. Okay, so if we execute it, as you can see, hour, minutes, seconds and microsecond can be individually accessed using these attributes. Minimum value is this and maximum value can be represented using time object is this, and minimum difference between two time object is this. Next is functions of time object. Okay, first is an isoformat, which returns the string representing time in isoformat. It has one argument, time spec, which is by default set to auto. So auto will return a string in this format if microsecond is given to the time object, else it will return in this format. Okay, if it is given as hours, it will return only hour. If given minutes, it will return hour minutes. Second, add second to that. Millisecond will represent time in this, and microsecond represent in this. So if we provide a microsecond and without any argument, isoformat will return string with microsecond. But if we don't pass microsecond into constructor, then as we can see here, it will not print 00 of microsecond. Okay, so let's execute all of the time format. As we can see, hour only print hour, minutes, second, microsecond and millisecond. Next method is from isoformat. Returns a time object constructed from given string containing isotime. So this is time represented in isotime in string, which will, and from isoformat will return time object from it. As we can see, same time is represented in time object. Next is replace method, which will return a new time object from an existing time object by replacing given arguments or parameters. So if we have time object t1 and we want to change only the minutes part of it, we can provide new value of minutes. And if we check it, as you can see, it will only replace minute part of it and return the same t1 object. Next method is utcoffset, which will return the time delta object having time difference between local time and UTC time. Okay. So here in time object we will provide tzinfo. We will make time aware of the time zone. Okay. So for now, time zone we will provide object of a time zone class, which is a concrete implementation of tzinfo abstract base class. Okay, which takes two argument. First argument is a time delta object, and second argument is a string representing the name of a time zone. Okay, so time delta object represent the difference between two date time or the time, okay, or the duration of time. So we will provide time delta object within the constructor of time zone constructor. Okay. So time delta object is representing 5 hours and 30 minutes, which is passed inside time zone constructor, which will set the time zone of a current time plus 5:30. Okay, and if we execute UTC offset on this, it should return the time delta object we have passed inside the time zone constructor. Okay, so it will return the same object. Next method is DST, returns the daylight saving time value for the given time zone. Okay, if it is not having daylight saving time, it will return null. Okay, so as we can see, this time zone is having no DST, so it will return none. Next method is tzname, which will return the string representing name of a time zone. So as we have said earlier, time zone constructor takes two arguments. Second is a string representing the name of time zone. So if we execute on a time object tzname, it will return the given string inside the constructor. Next class is DateTime. So this is his constructor, which is a combination of date constructor and the time constructor. Okay, all the parameter values, range and their meaning remains the same as the date and time class. Okay, so let's construct the date object, date and time object, DateTime. So we'll import first date and date time class from DateTime module, and we will name it as a DT. So it is a alias for DateTime class, and we will use that same alias to construct DateTime object. So for DateTime, only 3 parameters are mandatory, all others are optional parameters. So we only provide first DateTime object, we provide only date value. In this we have provided hours and minutes. In this we are providing minutes, seconds and microseconds. Okay, so let's execute it and see how it is looking. Next method is today. So today will return current date and time object. So if we execute dt.today, it will return current date and time of the machine. Next method is now, which will return the current local date and time with time zone if it is given. So time zone having one attribute UTC, which will return a UTC time zone object which is having offset set to 0. Okay, so if we don't provide any argument, because tz is an optional argument, it will behave same as today. So if we compare the output of two methods, it will give the same output. Okay, but if we pass UTC means the time zone, which is UTC means 00 offset, and with offset of -8 hours, it will give us a date time setted according to the given time zone. So if we see here, my current machine is set on IST, Indian Standard Time, which is plus 5:30. So if we convert it, take a now of UTC time zone, so UTC is a 0 offset, which will subtract 5 hours 30 minutes. Okay, so this has subtracted 5 hours 30 minutes. And if we set time zone of -8 hours, first of all it will convert this into the UTC time, which is this, and subtract 8 hours from this. So this become the final date time object. Next is attribute of date time class. So these are all the parameters of constructor of a date time. Min max represent the minimum and maximum date time value that can be represented, and resolution is smallest difference between two non-equal date time object. So let's execute all these parameter or attribute and see result. So we have now object which is date and time of current date and current time, year, month, day, hours, minute, microsecond, fold and tzinfo. So fold is 0 and tzinfo we have not provided any time zone information. Minimum, this is the minimum date time represented, this is maximum date time. This is the minimum difference between two non-equal date time object. Next topic is date time function. First is combine, which takes two arguments which are mandatory, date object and time object, and optional parameter time zone information. It will return date time object from the given date and time objects. Okay, and if optional argument time zone is provided, it will set the date time object according to that given time zone. So if we have today and the time is set to 12 hours and 11 minutes, and if we combine both, it will set the date as a current date and the given time to the date time object. Next method is date, which will return the date object from the date time object. So this is date time object, and if you execute date method, it will return date part of it in the date object. Same as date time will return time object from the given date time object. As you can see, time part of a date time is written as a time object. Next method is isoformat, which has two optional arguments. First is a separator, which is a separator between date and time, which is by default is capital T, and second argument is time spec, which is a format in which we want to print the we want to represent the date time object in the string. Okay, this is similar to the time object we have seen, but we have added the date part to it and a separator to it. Okay, so let's execute it. So as you can see here, we have provided a separator as a space, which will put space in the result string instead of putting capital T to separate it. And as per the given time spec, it will represent the hour part of time part of a date time. Next is fromisoformat. It returns the date time object from the given string represented in isoformat. Okay, so this is how the date time object is constructed from the string. Next is a utcnow, which returns the current UTC time with time zone set to the none. Okay, so if you execute dt.utcnow, this is the current UTC time. From timestamp returns the local date time from the timestamp value. So it takes one argument as a timestamp and optional argument tz. If given tz, it is timestamp is converted into time zones date time. Okay, so for that we will use time module, which is having method time which will return the epoch time or timestamp of a current date time. Okay, and we will pass that timestamp to the from timestamp method. So if you execute it, it will return the date time object constructed from the timestamp. If we provide that tz info, it will adjust the date time according to it, as we saw earlier. This is an local machine is representing ist, so it will subtract the 530, which is a UTC offset of this, and if we set minus 8 hours, it will further subtract 8 hours from the UTC. Next method is UTC from timestamp, which will return UTC timestamp from POSIX timestamp. Okay, so in this we are explicitly providing time zone as a UTC, but without providing you can use UTC from timestamp, which will return the local time stamp into the UTC time, date and time object. Next method is strptime, which takes two arguments, date string and the format, which will convert the date string given in the format to the date time object. Okay, so we have provided the date and the format of date time. Okay, so these are the symbol representing the given date time in the format. We will see the meaning of this symbol in detail in date formatting section. Okay, so just for now, this method converts the given date string into the given format into the date time object. So if we print it, it will represent the given date time into the date time object. Next method is timetz, represent the time object with time zone information. So if we have date time with the time zone specified and we execute timetz, it will return time object with the given time zone information. Next method is a replace, which will return a new date time object from an existing date time object by replacing the given parameter. Okay, so if we have a date time object and we want to change year and the day of it, we can pass it inside the replace method, which will return a new object. As you can see, the result, it has changed the date and the year part of it, and all the remaining argument remains the same as the original dt1 object. Next method is astimezone, which will return date time adjusted to the given time zone tz. Okay, so tz is an one and only optional argument which will take a time zone object, tzinfo subclass object, and it will return date time adjusted to given tzinfo object. As you can see, this is a local time represented in ist, which will converted into this given time zone. So 9 minus 9 minus 530. Next method is utcoffset, which returns the time delta object having time difference between local time and UTC time. So if we have date time object in with this given time zone, and if we execute it, it will represent the offset which is between the UTC time and the given time zone in the object. DST will return the daylight saving time value, and if the date time object is not having that DST value, it will return none. Next method is tzName, which will return the string representing the name of time zone. So which is second argument of a time zone constructor. It will return the same string. As you can see, it has written the same string. Next method is timetuple, which returns the time.struct timetuple, which representing the date time, which is compatible with time.localTime. Okay. So if you execute method this, it will return struct time named tuple. Okay. UTC time tuple, which returns the time.struct time representing UTC date and time as tuple, which is compatible with time.gmt time. So if you execute this, it will return the same struct time tuple, but the resultant structure is adjusted to the UTC time. Okay, so if we have provided this date time with offset this, then this will be the result of that. It will adjust the offset with the given date time and will return the UTC time, date time object. Next method is toordinal. Returns the proleptic Gregorian ordinal from the date time object. So it will only return the date part of it, same as we saw for the date object. And fromordinal will construct the date time object from the given ordinal value, in which the time will be 0 because we cannot preserve time in the given ordinal. Next method is timestamp. Returns the POSIX timestamp from the corresponding date time instance. So for Unix system, timestamp is a way of exchanging the time in the inside the same machine. Okay, so this will return the date and time represented as a timestamp. Next method is weekday. Returns the day of the week, 0 for Monday, 6 for Sunday. So 22nd March 2020 is Sunday, so it will give 6, and isoweekday will represent 7 as a Sunday, so it will return 7 for the day Sunday and 1 for the Monday. Next method is isocalendar, which returns the tuple representing iso year, week number and weekday, same as we saw for the date object. Okay, so this is the 12th week of the year 2020 and the day of week is 7th. From isocalendar we'll construct the date time object from the given 3 parameter iso year, iso week number and iso weekday. As you can see, it constructed date time object with time set to 0 with the given value of a year, week number and weekday. Next method is ctime, which represent the given date time into the string as per the ctime function of C library. Okay, so if you execute it, we can see date time represented as a ctime. So that brings us to the end of the tutorial.